Hello viewers and welcome. Today in this video I'm going to be talking about the Certified Kubernetes Administrator exam, my experience with it, and any tips or tricks that I have that will help you in achieving this exam if that's one of your goals. I'm Chris, I'm a cloud engineer, I mainly work with Google and I also work with Kubernetes. Now if you're wondering what the CKA exam is, it's an exam that is there to certify you as an administrator on Kubernetes. And in the way of exams go, it's a brilliant exam for actually justifying real world skills to an employer and having something of real sort of like merit in your back pocket. The exam is hosted by the Linux Foundation. You can find all the Kubernetes exams on there along with things like Argo, GitOps and Linux itself. When you purchase the exam, it comes with 2 attempts, so you actually technically you get a freebie. You get to give the exam a go, you get to see how the exam sort of structure is, and if you fail it, it's not that big a deal really, because you can just rebook and do it again at a later date for no extra costs, which in terms of exams, when exams are so expensive, that's a really good deal, right? I wish they were all like that. The exam itself is valid for 3 years. You can recertify earlier if you wish, it's not a problem. I've jumped the gun, I've gone in at about 2.5 years. The exam itself costs about $400, which equates to about £300 British pounds. One thing to note that's pretty good is the Linux Foundation do offer bundles. So they often do a bundle which consists of like the CKA with the CKA-D, which is the developer, or you have the CKS, which is the security. They are currently also running a promotion at the moment for the Kubeastronaut, which is a combination of 5 certifications that it basically give you this status of Kubeastronaut, which is pretty cool, I think. And you also get a blue jacket, which yeah, is 100% the main reason to go for it. So when it comes to why I personally took the exam, it was to gauge where I am now compared to where I was when I first started with Kubernetes, given that I've only been in tech coming up to 5 years now. I took the Kubernetes exams, one of my first early exams, and I got a pass mark of around 70. I think the requirement's around 66. And it was okay. You know, a pass is a pass, and I was happy about that. But it was through the skin of my teeth that I got through it. So in that sense, yeah. But comparing that to now, I went through that exam having worked with Kubernetes on a daily basis now. And the exam, yeah, it felt okay. I had one issue, which I can't go into detail about, but I did have one issue, which I will never know the answer to because you don't get feedback on what you got wrong, how you got it wrong. You merely get a mark out of like 100 or however it's graded. I think it's 100. The other reason I took it is because I feel that exam really, as I've already mentioned, that exam really kind of showcases my skills as an administrator. It's not a multiple choice exam that you can just learn the answers to. You need to actually do the work. And also, I do want to work towards that Kubeastronaut status. And with my CKA revalidated, we're 1 out of 5 and 4 to go, obviously. So I want to share with you some of the resources I used for my exam preparation. One of them was Nigel Poulton's Quick Guide to Kubernetes, and Nigel Poulton's also the Kubernetes book. They're both available on hard copy and e-copy. I'll share a link to them down below for you to check out. They're brilliant books. He updates it every year, so every year they are valid to new technology. I actually have the previous copy, which is 2021, I think, and reading that compared to the most recent one, 2024, there is quite a lot of differences, changes with Docker, changes with Kubernetes, different versions, way things work. Whilst there is some valid points still in previous editions, if you are going out there looking to buy one, I would get the most up-to-date edition as it's going to be the most relevant to what you're doing. In addition to the books I read, I spent a lot of time doing labs. A Cloud Guru has a great course, whilst it is still running version 1.7, I think off the top of my head, which is a little bit behind where the exam is right now. The majority of the content is still very valid. They have a really good exam lab process as well. It consists of 10 labs, which are really good for getting you used to the sort of like environment and the way in which the exam works. As a free resource, there is Killer.sh, which provide an hour free per day. And they give you a Kubernetes playground in which they'll provide you with some questions that are valid to the Kubernetes exam that you are taking. So they provide it for all the different exams. And you can be a paying customer if you want, and I think that gives you up to 4 hours per day of lab time, where you can practice questions, go in the playground, you can just work with Vim. It's all sorts, and that's a free resource for an hour per day and a paid resource for 4 hours per day. When you purchase the exam, you will also have access to Killer.sh, which is more of a hardcore, it's a really hard exam simulation. It provides you with a proper closed structure of, you have 2 hours to complete this, here's the questions, go at it, here's the clusters, and it gives you the proper format. It will tell you which context to use, because each question is normally on a per context basis. It's the same for the actual exam itself. Each question will give you the instruction for which context to use. And there's some fantastic resources. And when it comes to an exam like this, which is a hands-on exam, labs are the way forward. You need to understand how to actually navigate around a cluster, navigate to your nodes, and you're more likely to succeed rather than just having a literature education on the topic. Now I'm going to talk about the exam structure itself. I'm going to go into detail about the structure and the provider. So the new provider, or I think it was the back end of 2023, the provider is now moved to PSI, who are a proctor provider similar to Pearson VUE, and there is another one which I can't remember, which Google uses. Don't know. Now, if you have taken the CKA before, as in before 2023 mid-year, then there is some major differences to what the exam is like now in terms of the way in which it works. So previously, you were provided a secure sort of like browser link to the exam itself, but you were able to access Kubernetes.io, which is their official documentation, through your own browser. So what this meant was that you were able to bookmark certain references. So if you knew you struggled with questions about ingress, you could bookmark link everything about ingress, and you could call the bookmark exactly what you wanted to then reference during the exam. And this was great, and it was a real good sort of like a shortcut to get to references that you needed. But of course, they've clearly cracked down on that, because that's now gone. No bookmarks allowed, no personal bookmarks, gone. No personal browser, gone. Now you have access to the browser or to the internet, to Kubernetes.io within the PSI browser. So you'll need to download that before the exam. And I think it advises at least a day before the exam, you need to have this downloaded, tested, and trialed, so that it reduces the amount of complications you have when you actually take the exam on exam day. Within that, there is a browser which you can open and use a tab to get to. There is also links. So the questions themselves actually provide you with links that take you to the content that you require on Kubernetes.io for that question. So they really do give you the information that you need to do your job, a bit like the real world. It is very much real world. If you didn't know the answer to a question, you're going to go out there and you're going to Google it. And that's all they've done. They've just given you that, but they've given you official documentation instead of Google. Because that's how we really do it. So carrying on, we've covered the PSI, they're the provider, we've covered the browser. Per question, you will be per context. That is very important, because if you answer a question in the wrong context, because it is automated marking, that will not be graded. And it could actually have a negative effect on another question, because some questions might use the same context. And there is no multiple choice questions in this. There is no go out there, learn the answer to this question. There is none of that. None of it at all. It is all hands-on administration work within a cluster, which is brilliant. And I really enjoy it. I think it's the way all exams should be, all technical exams should be. Go out there, do the work, show us you can do the work, and we'll grade you on it. It's anyone can learn the answers to questions, because it's just memory. This is real problem solving. This is proper engineering, which is why I love it. The exam is 2 hours long, consists of anywhere between 15 and 20 questions. You have 2 hours to do all of that. You can request a break within them 2 hours. If you need to go to the bathroom, as such, you need to contact the proctor via the online chat service, which is it's very available, it's very there. However, that will not stop your timer. If you decide to go to the bathroom for half an hour of your 2 hours in the exam, you only have an hour and a half to do that exam. Totally valid, but that's your time. And I personally ran the entire 2 hours. I literally finished with a minute left because I had some issues with a couple of questions that really consumed my time. It was just, it happens. Other points to note, currently, and all this is available on the Linux Foundation website under their course catalogs for the CKA. The version that they're running on the exam is version 1.30. This has an effect really only on a couple of different topics. I think there's some changes in that release. There's some updates to the etcd commands. Other than that, I don't really think there's that many changes. Again, all this information is available on Kubernetes.io. In addition to being allowed breaks, you're also allowed a glass of water on your desk. It needs to be a clear glass or clear bottle, I think. I think a glass is recommended. It needs to be clear, and they'll ask to see that during the setup process, in which you're also not allowed anything on your desk that's a suspect. No electronics, no headphones, no smartwatches, no phones. They will ask to see your phone and then ask to watch you put your phone somewhere safe, away from the desk. And they'll want to see above, they want to see below, they want to see to the sides, they want to see everywhere. They want to see under the desk. You cannot have anything electronic. I have an extension lead on my desk, which they wanted a closer inspection of. So if you do have an external webcam, it does make life a lot easier. I was flipping my laptop left, right, and center to try and get this done. But hey, we got it done. Check-in probably took 15 minutes in total. About 15 minutes in total for him to be able to look at everything in the room. And that was it. I was off. Now, that's not to say that I had an incredibly smooth experience with PSI. And I have used PSI before, and I have also had issues with them in the past. And this is just part and parcel of the remote proctored exams. Pearson VUE, I have had a smooth experience every time. Never had any issues. I started. Now I am working on a single monitor screen. It's only a 14-inch screen. It's not huge. Yeah, I had issues. When I initially started it up, it was so zoomed in, I couldn't access any of the windows. So I couldn't get anywhere where I needed to go. I couldn't get to the interface to work with the questions, and I couldn't get to the interface to work with Kubernetes.io. I was stuffed, so I played with the controls, which you are advised to do beforehand by downloading the browser and going through the checklist. And my Zoom wasn't working or anything. And in that state, I also managed to break and crash the VM and cause an error 500, which cost me about 10 minutes of the exam. I reached out to technical support within there through their chat. I contacted my proctor. He then contacted the technical support. But by the time that happened, the issue had resolved. I was then able to see my screen. I was able to work within my screen. So do familiarize yourself with the PSI browser beforehand. Make sure you know how to use it. Make sure you know what you're doing, because that's its own challenge, is being able to use the browser efficiently. It gives you instructions on how to use copy and paste within the VM, because your keystrokes will be different. I'm using Mac, they might be using something else, etc. But overall, not a bad experience, not the best experience. Did stress me out a little bit to begin with, and if I'd had them extra 10 minutes, I possibly could have got a higher score. But hey, so my final tips and advice for anyone looking to take the Certified Kubernetes Administrator exam. First, hunt for exam discount codes. There is often people sharing them on LinkedIn. There is often codes available online just by searching. It is well worth checking out. That's for the exam. Book it actually book it. Give yourself a date to work towards. That is probably one of the most important things, because I've had this voucher, or I purchased it a while ago, but because I didn't book it, I kind of like half-assed my way around my study time. As soon as I booked it, I suddenly, I hit the books, and then that was it. I was working for it. So definitely just book it. Step 1, book your exam. Step 2, labs. Labs. This is a practical exam, preparing you for the practical world. Do labs. Whether it's build your own clusters at home, doing it on Minikube, K3s, using the Killer Coder, Killer Shell, building them on GKE or AWS or Azure, wherever it is, build some labs, practice, build it, break it, tear it down. There is hundreds and hundreds of different methods of building clusters. Using old bits of kit, I've got an old Mac that I've used. I've got an old laptop that I've used, built clusters on it, built it, teared it down. It's the best way to learn. The other tip, especially for the exam, become familiar with YAML. Now, it is very tempting to just copy and paste, right? So when you're doing the exam, if you have a question like create a pod, or even if you just want to create a pod, Kubernetes.io provides you with a basic pod YAML template. Try and practice writing it though, just so you can learn the indentation. Because if you run into problems where you need to troubleshoot, you're like, why isn't this working? If you're familiar with YAML indentation and file structure, so where an object sits and where a key sits underneath that object, you'll have a better chance. You're going to help yourself, if not only for the exam, just in general. You'll be able to spot, oh yeah, look, that's only got 3 spaces, it needs 4. And I kid you not, that happens. The amount of times I've accidentally put an extra space in there, or I've reviewed a PR and like there's a space. Because YAML is so finicky. It's what we use, so it's good to familiarize yourself with it. Hour a day, lab, you'll get there, for sure. It is, yeah. I can't preach enough about the CKA exam. I've done a few exams. I've done Google exams. I've done Kubernetes exams. I've done VMware exams. I've done Zerto exams. I've done Cisco exams. And my favorite exams has always been the hands-on labs, the original CCNA, back when it was actually separated to the CCNET, CCENT. They were hands-on labs. You worked with the command line, you worked with the terminal, you logged into routers, switches, and firewalls and devices, and you built things. And you come away thinking, I actually achieved something. Whereas I have done multiple choice questions where I'm like, well, I know the answer to this question, but this isn't gonna help me in the real world, is it? This isn't demonstrating my skill at how I can build it. That's just my 2 cents on it, To wrap things up, if you've got any questions about the CKA exam or anything else that you want me to create, please do leave a comment below. Please like this video if you found it interesting or helpful, and subscribe, because it helps me and it gives me encouragement to keep making these videos. Thank you.